Hello, welcome you all to my lectures on force. And now I am diagnosing the science, and just took the main subject as physics, because physics is the origin for every engineering. So it's the parent for engineering. Even whatever the all engineering disciplines are inherited version, we call it as outsourced version of physics. We call it as electrical, mechanical, electronics, and also in the last lecture I discussed about this the term called force, and I just classified this, what is force and what are the different types of force and classification of the force, and also I just took an initiation towards how the force has been propagated. And usually the energy can be propagated by means of wave. That is the logics, that every energy in this world can be inverse, can be propagated through the wave structure, and those will be propagated. That action we call it as momentum, the propagation by means of momentum. When it is taking the momentum, there is a force transfer among these two nearby particles that we are going to be discussed much more in this aspect. And I just classified little, but I have to go a lot to make it as to be classified. But before that, I just wanted to make one note. In this case, we have discussed about the different kind of positive forces, but now I am going to discuss about the negative forces. What are the different kind of negative forces in this case? Usually negative forces can be classified into two different aspects. One is drag force, another one is friction force. In this case of drag force and friction force is concerned, the drag force is usually happen in this case of fluid. The fluid will only have this drag force. Because what is a fluid? The fluid is nothing but an less inter-object forces. The fluid will have its dynamic by this positions. It's keep on moving. It's very easy to change its status. Maybe the colloids or fluids or gas or liquid or colloids. These are all will comes under this one. Usually the drag force is within this inside an object. For example, I have a fluid like this. I have a fluid in this case. If I am moving from here, and it will be keep on interacting with all these elements of this nearby elements. Those can be easy to change its structures. That will be very easy to change the structures. These objects we call it as drag forces. And whereas in case of friction is concerned, it's very hard to change its structural. There is no structural damages, there is no structural changes. We call it as structural changes. There is no structural changes, that is little. When it is collides, and it's very hard to make it as to be righted. That's different aspects. In this case of drag forces concerned, it should be the force. The drag force is usually in the fluids, and it has very less interaction forces, and it is more easy to movable of an atoms. The atoms can be moved, atoms or molecules or anything, materials can move from one position to the other. It can be in a gas, it can be an air, it can be a liquid, it can be a colloids, or it can be a gel, whatever may be this case. So based on this, we will have this one. Some examples we call it as gases and liquids, and this is about drag force. When we are discussing about this friction forces, the friction force is usually happened in this case of solid objects, and usually it might be happen in the surface of the object. But whereas in case of drag force, it should be within an object. But whereas in case of friction, it will happen in this case of surface of this object. This is object 1, object 2. So this object is moving in this direction. This is the region where we will experience the friction. Maybe 2 objects, maybe 3 objects, maybe anything like this. One object is acceleration due to gravity, that is we call it as G, and one is this object 1 force, and this is object 2 force. Here there is a 3 different kind of forces happening here. So due to this usually the friction might be happen in this case of surface only, but whereas in the drag, it should be inside the fluid. Here also we will have the one is acceleration due to gravity, and we'll have the fluid force, and this will have the another object. This is an object 1, object 2, object 3. That is acceleration due to gravity. That's the gravity. 3 forces has happened, but whereas here we will have only two, here also 3 forces, and here also 2 or 3, 4, 2 forces or 3 forces or 4 forces like this. Usually it might be happen between the 3, at least 3 forces, or maybe usually it might be 3 forces. So this is the case, and the force, I'll just conclude it, and the force can be classified into 2 types. One is friction force and the drag force. The friction force is usually happen in the solid objects, and here the inter-object there is no structural changes. It's a it cannot it will change, it doesn't allow to change the structure, but it fights to retain its structure. That is in this case of solid. Whereas in case of fluid, it can keep on moving inside this one even though the object is not moving. But when it is entering into this one, there will be surface of this one. There's n number of molecules, maybe in terms of millions to billions of molecules are interacting with these objects, and it can directly, it's easy to change the structure. Whereas here, almost not as like this, usually it might be happen in the surface, so it's the interaction is very less than this fluid, but it doesn't, it has more, experiences more forces because it gives a much more force in this case of friction as concerned. So it's not, usually it may not be movable inside the object. It is the static one because it's a solid one, and it's a static, this structure is almost like a static structure, and it is happening usually in the surface of the object. Thank you.